Okay, so this is the first lesson of Unit 9, which is calculating the area and circumference of circles. But before we get into area and circumference, let's go over some basic vocabulary. So we have a circle, as you see here, and we know it's a circle with a center. And the center is the point that's equidistant from all other points on the circle. So our center here is C. Okay, and the notation that I want to use is the way that we name circles. We name circles based on the center of their circle. So we would call this circle, circle C, or we'd use the symbol for circle, which is a circle with a point in the middle, and say circle C. That's the way that we know that the center is point C. Okay, I'll talk about the equidistance part right now, which brings me to the radius. The radius is any segment from the center of the circle to the edge of a circle. So an example of that would be this segment here. This would be a radius because it goes from the center to the point on the circle. So that is a radius. This is also a radius because it goes from the center to the edge of the circle. And this is also a radius because it goes from the center to the edge of the circle. So a radius you will always name with the center first. So we'll say CQ is a radius, and this tells us that the center is C. A radius is also CV. The radius is also CA. Again, where the center comes first. To go back to this equidistance from all other points, this is the center because all of these radii will be congruent. So if this is 5, then this is also 5, and this is also 5. And that's why C is the center, because it's equal distance from all of the points on the circle. Okay, so now let's go on to a diameter. A diameter is any segment with endpoints on the circle, and it passes through the center. So endpoints on the circle, and it passes through the center. So this, for example, is a diameter. The diameter would be segment VA. Okay? A non-example would be if I were to say connect these two. This is not a diameter because it doesn't pass through the center of the circle. Therefore, it's not a diameter. Okay. All right, now we have interior point and exterior point. An interior point is any point inside the circle. So interior meaning in. So an example of that would be point U. Point U is an interior point. You could also say point C is an interior point. However, more specifically, that's the center. Okay. An exterior point is a point that's on the outside of the circle. So an example of that would be point T. Point T is an exterior point because it's outside of the circle. And then a point on the circle is any point that's on the actual circle, right? So R, V, Q, A, and S. Point R, Q, V, S, and A. Those are all points on the circle. Okay, so now that we've went over that vocabulary, I really quickly want to point out that the diameter will always be made up of 2 radii. So if the radius is 5, then the diameter is 10 because it's 5 plus 5, which would be 10. Okay, and for that matter, if the diameter is, say, 20, right? So the whole diameter is 20. That means that each of these would be half of that, 10 and 10. So just remember that, and we'll continue to review it as we go. All right, so on to our actual objective for today. Our objective for today is to be able to find the area and circumference of a circle. So we're going to quickly shade the area of the rectangle and the circle. We know that the area is all of this space inside of the rectangle. And so the area is going to be the same for a circle. It's the area inside. But obviously these are two different shapes, so we find them two different ways. We find area of a circle by doing pi times r squared, where r is the radius of the circle. Okay. Now let's shade or highlight the perimeter of the rectangle. So the perimeter is the distance around the outside of the circle, where we would, or sorry, the rectangle, where we would add up all those sides. The perimeter of a circle is the same. It's the distance around the outside of the shape, except we call that circumference because perimeter is segments. Okay? Whereas circumference, these are not segments, therefore we can't do that. So circumference we will find by doing 2 times pi times r or pi times d. Okay? I like to use 2 pi r, where r is the radius. Other option is pi d, where d is the diameter. All right, so let's do these 3 questions very quickly together. We're going to find the area and the circumference of the circle below. So I'm going to go ahead and really quickly write down the area formula. Area equals pi times r squared. And then let's write down the circumference formula. 2 times pi times r. You need to memorize these. So what we have here is 8, and it's going to be the diameter because it's in the middle. So that means each of these are 4, because 4 plus 4 is 8. So my radius is actually 4, and that's what I need to use. Solve this at r equals 4. So the area is pi times 4 squared, which is 16 pi centimeters squared. Pi is a number. We'll deal with that in a second. All right, for circumference, it's 2 pi r. So we're going to solve this at r equals 4. So the circumference is 2 times pi times the radius, which is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. And then we have a pi. So 8 pi centimeters. So the distance around is 8 pi. The area inside is 16 pi. All right, number 2. The area of a circle is 64 pi. So the area is 64 pi. What is the diameter of the circle? So we're solving for d. We know the area. So let's write down the area formula. And what we're going to do is we're going to substitute 64 pi in for a. All right. We need to isolate r. So we're going to divide both sides by pi. Pi divided by pi is 1. 64 equals r squared. We need to isolate r, so we're going to go ahead and square root both sides. Technically, when you square root as an inverse operation, you add plus or minus to it. And so plus or minus 8 is the radius. So the radius is either positive 8 or negative 8. Does it make sense that a radius is negative? No. So our radius is actually just 8. Is the question asking for the radius? It's not. It's asking for the diameter. So the diameter is 16 feet. Make sure you actually answer the question, right? Okay. Last one. The circumference of a circle is 10 pi. Circumference is 10 pi. Find the approximate area of a circle. So whenever we see this approximate sign, that means that we want to get rid of the pi. Okay, pi is approximately 3.14 and then like 159 and more numbers. It's a number that, it's an irrational number. It cannot be written as a fraction. So when we see this word approximate, then we're going to substitute, how about just 3 in for pi? So that we don't have a pi anymore. We have an actual like approximate distance. So let's solve this first. We need to find the area, the approximate area. So the circumference is 2 pi r. Okay, and we know the circumference is 10 pi. So let's substitute 10 pi in. And then we'll divide both sides. We're trying to solve for r by 2 pi. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the radius is 5. Is it asking for the radius? No. So we need to find the area. So now let's substitute 5 in for r. So the area is 25 pi. Except it's asking for approximate. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to substitute 3 in for pi. So area is approximately 25 times 3. So the area is approximately 75 feet squared. Again, pi is a number, and so we substitute in something like 3, so we know it's going to be close to 75. It's actually going to be a little bit bigger than 75, but we know it's going to be approximately 75 feet. Okay, go ahead and do your practice and check your answer keys.